Get ready.
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the start of a brand new year. If you had seen my previous video in my 2025 in review, I shared my best movies of 2025. But now it is officially time to close that final chapter of 2025 and move full steam ahead onto the year that is 2026. If you are noticing that I'm sounding a little hoarse, I kind of explain it in my best movies of the year video, but I'll just reiterate it again. A virus knocked me on my ass just as I was gonna do these videos, so hence why they're a little bit later, and hence why it sounds like my vocal cords are on their last legs. But they made it through my best of the year list, so let's see if they make it through my most anticipated. We have 20 movies to talk about. Oh god. But in all seriousness, what a year for film 2026 is looking to be, with huge franchise installments, big blockbusters for some of the most acclaimed directors, and what is sure to be several awards contenders sprinkled in too. 2026 has the potential to be a banner year for cinema. As has been the case with all of my anticipated lists, I'm counting down my top 20, yes, 20, because the year is stacked. And once again, I'm prefacing, this is my list, these are my personal choices. Feel free to share what you are most looking forward to in 2026 down in the comments below. I also try and have a release date secured for each of the films on the list, specifically a UK release date, just because we all know how partial some movies are to shifting their release dates about, and because I tend to follow UK release dates, there may be some films on this list that could have already been released in some territories, or actually aren't due for a UK release until 2027. Case in point, Robert Eggers' Werewolf. Now that would have 100% been on this list, and it is getting a 2026 release in the States and a few other territories, but alas for the UK, it's got written down the 1st of January 2027. So, spoiler alert for 2027's list, it might be on that one. But even with 20 slots, there are still some that just can't quite make the cut, and so I do have a few honourable mentions. Street Fighter. Is the film likely to be any good? Probably not, but the little glimpse we saw from the Game Awards looked fun enough. Waste Man. Produced by Philip Barantini, whom you might know as the creator of the show Adolescence, comes a raw, hard-hitting prison drama starring one of my most promising actors working today, and also my personal pick to be the next James Bond, David Johnson. Clayface. I'm still a bit flummoxed as to why this was greenlit in the first place, but apparently the screenplay is impressive, and I am intrigued as to how this has wound up becoming the third feature film within the new DCU. And Hamnet. Chloe Zhao may not have won me over with Nomadland, but Hamnet sounds like a drama that will hit me right in that sweet spot. Add-on reported awards-worthy performances from Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal, and I'm kinda sure this is gonna get me teary-eyed. But let's not dilly-dally anymore and get on with the countdown. At number 20, we have The Legend of Aang, The Last Airbender. No, don't panic, this is not the long-awaited sequel to M. Night Shyamalan's monstrosity. Instead, we are being treated to the continuation of the beloved animation from the late 2000s. I adored the show when I was younger, and the prospect of following on the adventures of Aang and Katara and others has been a giant what-if for a while. Slight worry though is that I've heard it might be getting a Paramount Plus release only. I hope that's not the case, because I think a film of this and the following that I know that this franchise has, I hope that we can see this get a theatrical release too. Number 19 is Supergirl. I know, some lists are likely to have this higher, but lest we forget, if you've seen my review of James Gunn's Superman from earlier this year, I wasn't too keen on it. I didn't hate it. I just didn't think it was as great as everyone said it was, and particularly wasn't the start that I needed from the DCU. Now, Gunn is only a producer for Supergirl, and judging from the trailer, I'm a little more on board with this vibe. I think Millie Alcock is a great pick for Kara, and I appreciate her more jaded view of the galaxy. And let's be real, more crypto is never a bad thing. In at number 18 is The Adventures of Cliff Booth. Now, this one caught me by surprise. I had heard rumblings that Tarantino was keen to continue the story of Cliff Booth, who is Brad Pitt's character from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it turns out that he's only gone and written a bloody script for it, but rather than direct, he's only gone and gotten David Fincher instead. I have not a clue what the story will entail, but with Brad Pitt back in the yellow Hawaiian shirt, Tarantino penning the screenplay, and Fincher in the director's chair, sign me up. Coming in at number 17 is The Social Reckoning. And as we see David Fincher pick up a sequel of a film that wasn't his to start with, one of Fincher's own great films from 2010 is getting a sequel of its own. This time with Aaron Sorkin returning to write, but also to direct. I'm not entirely sure what this new film is focusing on, but given how incredible Sorkin's script was in 2010, and all of the latest developments with social media and Zuckerberg, I'm praying that he hasn't lost that touch in 16 years. Not only that, but he has put together a magnificent ensemble. Replacing Jesse Eisenberg is the chameleonic Jeremy Strong, and he'll also be joined by Jeremy Allen White and recent Oscar winner Mikey Madison. You pair all of this together, and this has the makings of a must-see. Number 16 is The Hunger Games: Sunrise on the Reaping. The last movie we saw from the Hunger Games saga, I gotta be honest, did little to impress me. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes failed to convince me of its own reason to exist, telling a story that I honestly don't think needed telling in the first place. So, I was a little unsure when author Suzanne Collins announced the Sunrise on the Reaping book. It was going to be another prequel, and a movie was also in production, and this time the story is going to be the full detail of Haymitch's games. We got a brief insight into that in the Catching Fire book, and it was never really discussed much in the movies, but after hearing the rave reviews of the book, hearing it harkens back to the darker intensity of the games themselves, well, that is something that entices me much more. Plus, after seeing how well Francis Lawrence directed The Long Walk, I'm hoping he's able to incorporate that same level of hopelessness and intensity as he did with that film. Number 15, I've got Scary Movie 6. I'm under no pretense here. I know there is all the likelihood in the world that Scary Movie 6 is gonna suck. The original Scary Movie is a guilty pleasure for me. It was the must-watch film at any sleepover because it was rude, it was silly, it was ridiculous, but it's also a totally daft send-up to all sorts of horror movies. Now, as we know, each sequel got worse until the franchise just disappeared. But with the sudden resurgence of silly comedies, Scary Movie 6 was given the green light. And with that, the Wyan brothers are back, Anna Faris and Regina Hall are back. I'm not gonna lie, I am sure there are going to be plenty of groan-inducing moments. But there's a lot to satirize in horror nowadays, so hopefully the team can latch onto something good. Landing at number 14 is Digger. Very little is known about this project. I mean, heck, the title of this film up until maybe 2 weeks ago was just labeled as an untitled Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu Tom Cruise project. So Digger is the upcoming project from Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu and also Tom Cruise. Specifically though, Tom Cruise as we've never seen him before, and that is what we are being sold on. The rough premise that I'm loosely aware of is that Tom Cruise's character becomes privy to information about the incoming apocalypse, and so takes it upon himself to spread the word and alert everyone. I've got no idea what to expect apart from one thing, and that is Tom Cruise is well and truly coming for an Oscar. And if that is the case, we better batten down the hatches. Taking the spot of number 13 is the Magic Faraway Tree. This won't be the only time you hear this rationale, but I have personal reasons why this makes my list. The Magic Faraway Tree are a series of children's stories by Enid Blyton that were often read to me by my mum and my nan, and when I was little, I was obsessed with Moonface and Saucepan Man and the Slippery Slip. So, to see this series finally brought to life on the big screen, and to hopefully take my mum and my nan to see this, is something I am greatly looking forward to. Not only that, but the creative team are the minds that brought us Paddington 2. You don't tend to wave that Paddington 2 credit around lightly. This, I think, has the potential to be something special. Number 12, I have Coyote vs. Acme. This entry is a bit more of a curiosity case. I'm sure the movie will be fine, but it's the story that comes with it, which is why I'm anticipating its release. Now, for those that don't know, bit of a history lesson, Warner Brothers had given the green light to a new live-action Looney Tunes hybrid. The story would be based on Wile E. Coyote finally preparing to sue Acme for all of his misfortunes, trying to catch Roadrunner. The film had completed production, and I believe been near enough ready to have a final cut to be released, but for taxation purposes, Warner Brothers shelved the project entirely with no release planned. Because of a gigantic rally of support and an extensive bidding process, the rights to the film were bought by Ketchup Entertainment, and thus a 2026 release was confirmed. Early reports say the film is very, very good and has that classic Looney Tunes vibes, so I'm just curious to see if Warner Brothers may have let one slip through the cracks. Thundering its way into the number 11 spot is Masters of the Universe. Quite frankly, I'm a little surprised that we haven't had a Masters of the Universe reboot sooner, but if test reports are anything to go by, we may have a sleeper hit of the summer on our hands. Travis Knight, who cut his teeth on many of the acclaimed Laika animated films and gave us the hugely delightful Bumblebee movie, is at the helm for this, and I trust his directorial capabilities. If this lands, I think the franchise has all the potential to spawn many new fans and be considered a revamped science fiction hit. I just wonder how camp the film's gonna be. I mean, if you've seen the cartoons, they really can't avoid it. Now we reach the top 10, and taking that 10th place is Michael. As I mentioned at the start of the video, 2026 is shaping up to be a seismic year for cinema, but particularly for the box office. And so, I present to you a film that will comfortably cross the $1 billion threshold. I am sure this movie won't be without controversy, and I have no idea how it will go about addressing certain aspects of MJ's personal life, given how closely the Michael Jackson estate are involved in this, but also the fact that it's a biopic of his life, and there was some pretty questionable things that went on. But for the sake of sheer spectacle, a biopic of the King of Pop has been overdue for eons, and judging from the initial teaser, director Antoine Fuqua is keen on taking audiences to the front row of a Michael Jackson concert, and that is an experience very few will pass up. What also remains to be seen is how Jafar Jackson will fare starring as his uncle. He has the look and may have the moves, but is he able to act the part too? In at number 9, I have Narnia, the Magician's Nephew. I've seen quite a few 2026 lists, and I'm not seeing this come up on many, and I'm just a little bamboozled as to why this isn't on a lot of people's radar. You have Greta Gerwig, director of such hits like Barbie, Little Women, and Ladybug, set to take on her biggest challenge yet as she embarks on a quest to Narnia. Pairing up with Netflix, Gerwig is starting her Narnia series with adapting the first book, The Magician's Nephew. Now, is it the most thrilling of the Narnia stories? No, but to return to this world with a new vision is extremely exciting, let alone that vision being Greta Gerwig's. Not to mention that Gerwig has scored an exclusive deal with IMAX, so as far as I'm aware, I believe that this is going to be getting a guaranteed theatrical release too. At number 8 is Toy Story 5. Okay, let's level with each other. Do we need a Toy Story 5? Of course not, just as we didn't need a Toy Story 4. But Toy Story 4 was pretty good. Okay, it's not as good as the original trilogy, but it's still very enjoyable. So come on, it's a new Toy Story adventure. You think I'm not even going to be slightly buzzing for that? Being back with Woody, Buzz, Jessie and the gang, and seeing them square off against digital products, that seemed like it was written in the stars. But I'm sure, knowing Pixar, they'll find a way to tug on our heartstrings as usual. I also don't think that we should in any way count this out, as Toy Story 5 is directed by Andrew Stanton, a Pixar Hall of Famer, who has directed films like WALL-E and Finding Nemo. At number 7, I have Disclosure Day. Anytime a new Spielberg film rolls around, it always feels special, and it's even more so when it's him going back to his science fiction roots. Specifically, at least if we're going by the look of the trailer, the roots of Close Encounters. Little is known about Disclosure Day, even with there being a trailer released online, but we see images of crop circles, discussions of UFOs, alien secrets, government cover-ups, and Emily Blunt as a weatherwoman doing some freaky stuff on air. I don't know how this is all going to pan out, but in Spielberg we trust, because this could be one of those great examples of Spielberg magic that graces cinema screens, and when that happens, my word, is it a gift. Number 6 is Project Hail Mary. There are times, and trust me when I say this, when you don't really need to see anything from a film, and you just get the notion that it's gonna be great. That was me when Project Hail Mary was first announced. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know that it was even really a science fiction story. I knew that it was based on a book by Andy Weir, the same author who gave us The Martian. I knew that it starred Ryan Gosling, and that it was going to be directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the team behind the Jump Street movies and also the Spider-Verse films. That was all I needed to sell me that this was going to be a great movie. It was then when I found out that it was about deep space travel, and that everything that I've seen from the marketing ever since has given me that vote of confidence tenfold. If all goes to plan with this film, we may have a sci-fi classic in the making here. The trailer, I don't use this lightly, it gave me Interstellar vibes, a slightly more lighthearted Interstellar, but I really mean that in the highest compliment possible. I'm going to make a bold claim. I'm really not going to be surprised if Project Hail Mary winds up on my best movies of 2026 list. Taking the number 5 spot is Spider-Man: Brand New Day. The next chapter for everyone's favourite web crawler hits cinemas this year, and if reports are to be believed, it's gonna be a big one. The expectation is that it stars a whole host of baddies for Spidey to be fending off against, and also includes Jon Bernthal returning as the Punisher, making his feature film debut in the MCU, and Mark Ruffalo is back as Bruce Banner and the Hulk. How they will link into Peter's story remains to be seen, but it will also be intriguing to see how they carry on the threads that were left from No Way Home. What is Peter up to now? We've left high school Peter Parker behind, and now we're back to classic college, Daily Bugle, always behind on rent Peter Parker. But what I'm looking forward to most is the fresh set of hands on the film. Taking over directing duties is Destin Daniel Cretton, who previously directed the Shang-Chi film. He brought such a unique visual flair and energy to the action, which, when utilized for Spider-Man, should be a delight to watch. Now, for these next 4, I think if you were to view 100 different most anticipated of 2026 lists, they're probably going to have one of these 4 sitting pretty at the top. And no matter what order I put them in, I'm sure I'm going to disappoint some people that their favourite isn't sitting at my number 1. But nevertheless, my number 4 is Dune Part 3. And I've somewhat cheated here because I've placed it at number 4, not because I'm looking forward to it any less than the remaining 3, but because I'm convinced the film won't actually come out this year. Here's my thinking. It is currently slated for release on the 18th of December, as is another gigantic blockbuster which we might be talking about shortly. But given that both films are going to be going for big box office numbers, and especially are going to be after that IMAX exclusivity, I think it's practically box office suicide for Dune to stay its course. So unless it's willing to move forward, which might be a push given they have less than a year to finish it now, I think the only sensible decision would be to push this film into 2027. Other than that though, the film itself is sure to be another stroke of genius from Denis Villeneuve. I'm told the book explores some of the stranger corners of the galaxy, but if there is one director I trust to captain that, it's Denis. And I may as well just tell you now that the other big blockbuster that's coming out on the 18th is also my number 3 most anticipated film, and it's Avengers Doomsday. Sorry Dune, I love you, but you're not winning the box office war against the Avengers. Given all that we know that Doomsday is set to have in store, for that to come in at number 3, I think really speaks volumes to how stacked this year is. I know I say this all the time whenever a new Marvel release rolls around, but truly, Marvel cannot afford to screw this up. You've brought the Russos back, Downey is back, but this time as Doom. Chris Evans is back as Steve. The frickin' X-Men from the 2000s are back. The X-Men that I grew up with. There is so much on the table that could result in the film becoming a chaotic, overstuffed mess. But, then again, we said the same about Infinity War and Endgame. And look how they turned out. Sure, it hasn't been the smoothest of roads to get to Doomsday, but Marvel usually pulls out the stops when they need to. Okay, I wonder how this is going to go down. My number 2, and just narrowly missing out on the top spot, is The Odyssey.
Hi, don't shoot. Please don't shoot.
Please don't shoot me. I'm so sorry, Nolan fanboys. I'm so sorry, I've let you down. Before I reveal what my number 1 is, please just hear me out and explain that of the final 2 in the list, I am confident that The Odyssey will be the better movie. Just look at everything on paper. It's Christopher Nolan, possibly the greatest filmmaker of the 21st century, directing one of the most epic tales to have ever been written. If there was ever a time for cinema to reach its peak, it's probably going to be in July 2026. And ultimately, there doesn't even need to be a marketing campaign for The Odyssey. You could just tell audiences that Christopher Nolan has made an adaptation of The Odyssey, and we will inevitably flock to the cinemas. But I am sure it will be a pinnacle of filmmaking. Nolan never does things by halves. And whilst so far the trailers have only shown us the more historical elements to Homer's tale, they're doing a good job shielding the fantastical elements which will undoubtedly dazzle us on that IMAX screen. The cast is an embarrassment of riches with an assortment of who's who in the roles. I just know it will be fawned over by the Oscars and likely adored in half a century's time, the same way that we look back at classics now of films like Lawrence of Arabia. But alas, The Odyssey could not journey its way to my number 1 spot, and instead, I harken back to the slightly more personal reasons as to why this film sits at the top of my list. My number one most anticipated movie of 2026 is The Mandalorian and Grogu. As I mentioned when speaking about The Odyssey, I'm not here saying that I think The Mandalorian and Grogu is gonna be the best film of 2026. I'm sure it'll be hugely enjoyable, as has the show been thus far. I'm excited to see what new adventure we go on, and to see the characters inhabit the big screen format for a change. Also, from a story perspective, there has to be somewhat of a reason as to why they've greenlit a movie rather than just doing another season. Maybe something in the story works better told on the big screen, perhaps. But to speak personally for a moment, the reason why The Mandalorian and Grogu is my number one most anticipated film of the year is because it gets to provide me with my favourite cinema-going experience, getting to see a new Star Wars film with my dad. We've done it ever since I was little, way back when he took me along with my granddad to see Attack of the Clones, and so now, whenever a new Star Wars movie comes out, that's what I look forward to most. Going with my dad, opening weekend in our hammy Star Wars shirts, and geeking out. So yeah, perhaps it might just be an alright film. But seeing as this list is talking about the things I'm looking forward to most, this takes the top spot without question. So there we have it. The Mandalorian and Grogu is my number one most anticipated movie of 2026. But those were just my opinions. What are yours? Are there any films on this list that you had no idea were coming out, or any of them that you're now looking forward to? We have one final stop on my year in review, and that is the thing that I always look forward to doing at the end of every year. It's one of my favorite videos that I get to make, and that is my celebration of film of the year that was. So please make sure you are subscribed to my channel, because I will be dropping that very, very shortly. But otherwise, I wish you all a very happy new year. Here is to 2026, what I think is going to be a fantastic year for cinema, and I will see you in the next video. Hello, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, make sure to click that like button, and if you aren't already, click that subscribe button too.